A very good morning to all my dear students. How are you? I hope you all are fine, fit, healthy, and enjoying learning at home. With this, I, Miss Rupali Avare, welcomes you all for this today's session. Our today's session is based on the chapter which is from the chemistry, that is matter around us pure? This is the more interesting topic, and you can relate your day to day activities with this topic. So, let us start with this today's session. At the end of this session, you will be able to understand the concepts like matter, pure substance, mixture, solution, physical, and the chemical changes. So, you have noticed the word matter in the title of this chapter. So, first, let us understand the meaning of matter. So, in the chapter first, you have already learned the concept of matter, right? You have learned this in the first chapter, matter in our surrounding. Then, you guess what is the meaning of matter? So, yes, just look around yourself. You will observe many things, right? Variety of things you will observe with different shapes, sizes, textures, height, and so on. So we can say that everything in the universe which is made up of the material and which scientists have named them as the matter. So as you have seen many things in your surrounding, you can call them as the matter. With this, the air you breathe, the food you eat, the stones, clouds, stars, planets, and the animals, even the small drop of water, particles of the sand, everything is the matter. So we can define matter as any substance that has mass and takes up space by having volume. We can also define matter as anything which has mass and volume which occupies the space. So, in the earlier chapter, you have focused on the physical nature of the matter, and depending on that, you classify them into the three types that are the solids, liquids, and the gases. But here we are going to focus on the chemical properties of the matter, and in this way, we are going to classify them into the pure substances and into the mixtures. Mixtures, it is exactly opposite to the pure substances. These are also known as the impure substances. Okay, so whatever matter which is present in our surrounding, they can be existed as a pure substance or as a mixture. Now let us see pure substances and mixture in detail. Before that, what you are going to actually learn in this session, will take just a small recap of it. So already you have seen that matter on their physical states, we can classify them into the solids, liquids, and gases. Then on the chemical properties, we can classify them as a pure substance and as a mixtures. Then further, pure substances are classified as elements and compounds, and the mixtures are classified as homogeneous and the heterogeneous mixtures. So let us start with the pure substances. So in our day-to-day life, you might have seen many things. You might have went with your mother to the market And you have noticed the word written on the packets like the pure salt or the pure ghee, pure milk. But is it actually pure? Think on it. If you will consider a milk, it is actually a mixture of water, fat, and proteins. So, can we call that as a pure substance? So, let us see them in detail. So, when scientists call something as a pure, it means that all the constituent particles of that substance are the same in their chemical nature, and hence we can say a pure substance consists of a single type of particles, or we can say a substance is a pure single form of matter. See, let us consider an example of gold, water, or the copper. If you will consider a copper brick, that copper is made up of only the particles of copper. No other particles are there. Hence, that copper is made up of only copper particles and which are identical to one another, and hence it is a pure substance. Same for a gold. Gold is made up of only one type of particles, the gold particles, and all these gold particles are identical to one another, and hence we call them as a pure substance. Whereas water, except the minerals and everything, the water is made up of only the water molecules, is considered as a pure substance. So what we can say is a substance which is made up of only one type of particle that are identical to one another is known as a pure substance. See, we cannot separate the pure substance into the simpler substances by using the physical methods. Okay? So many materials which see or which exist around us as a metal, non-metals and the metalloids, and they all are commonly known as the elements. So if you will see the elements are made up of only one kind of particles, hence all the elements are the pure substances, right? Now, to understand the concept of a compound, we are going to learn that in detail, but before that, consider two elements like the iron and the sulfur and mix them together and heat it. So when you just mix it, you can separate it by just rotating a magnet over these two elements, right? Of iron and sulfur. After heating, the chemical properties of iron and sulfur will totally get changed, and after heating you will be not able to separate iron from the sulfur. So in that case you will observe that these two different substances, they chemically combined with each other to form a compound, okay, where the chemical properties of these two elements, they get completely changed and you cannot separate them by using the physical means. So let us study about first as the pure substances. In that we have seen elements are the pure substances, then we have seen compounds are also the pure substances, then we have also seen that elements are classified as metals, non-metals and the metalloids. So we can say that Elements is the basic form of matter that cannot be broken down into simpler substances by the chemical reaction. This was said by the French chemist Antoine Lavoisier. He was the first to establish an experimentally useful definition of an element. With this, Robert Boyle also was the first scientist to use the term element in 1661. So these elements can further be divided into the metals, non-metals and the metalloids. So let's see them in short. So what are the metals? We'll just see their properties. Metals, they have luster, means they possess a shine. If you will observe their color, they are generally silvery gray or golden yellow in color. Then they conduct the heat and electricity. Why they can conduct the heat and electricity? Because the free electrons are present in the elements or in their elements, right? In the outermost shell, if you will observe, the free electrons are present, and due to the presence of these free electrons, they can conduct the heat and electricity. Then they are ductile. Ductile means we can make the wires out of it, right? Then the metals are also malleable, means on hammering the metals we can form a thin sheets out of it, and that property of metal is known as the malleability. Hence metals are malleable, as well as they are sonorous, means on just heating they can make a ringing sound, and hence the metals are sonorous. Examples of metals are gold, silver, copper, iron. Mercury is also one of the examples. So we can say metals exist in solids and liquid states. Mercury is the exception, is the only metal that is liquid at the room temperature. So this is what about the metal. Then let us see about the non-metals. So if you will see the non-metals, they are generally brittle in nature. They display variety of colors. Then they are the poor conductors of heat and electricity, because no free electrons are present in the outermost shell of these elements, and hence they cannot conduct the electricity, or they are the poor conductors of heat and electricity. Then they are not lustrous. They do not have any type of shine. They are generally grayish and black in color, for example graphite. Then they are also not sonorous. They do not produce any sound on heating. Then they are also not malleable. That means we cannot form a thin sheets out of it. For example, hydrogen, oxygen, iodine and carbon. And the last type of elements which we see is the metalloid. Metalloid means these elements have the intermediate properties between those of metals and the non-metals. For example, the boron, silicon, germanium, etc. So this is how we can classify the elements into the metals, non-metals and the metalloids, which are the pure substances. Now let us see the compounds, which is also a type of a pure substance. So what is a compound? Already we have seen in the earlier activity. On heating the iron filling and sulfur, we cannot separate the iron fillings from the sulfur. Why? Because a chemically combined substance is formed, right? So we can say a compound is a substance consists of two or more elements which are chemically bound with one another in a fixed proportion. The new substance which is formed that has completely different properties from the earlier case, right? And the constituents can be separated only by the chemical reactions or by the electrochemical reactions. So this is what about the compounds. So we have seen that matter can be classified as pure substance, and then the types of pure substances are elements and the compounds. Now let us see the mixtures. Mixtures are also known as the impure substances. It is exactly opposite of the pure substance. Mixture, it contains two or more pure substances which are mixed together. It contains two or more different kinds of particles also. For example, potassium permanganate, right? So we can say that mixture is a substance containing two or more pure substances mixed together. For example, you know that dissolved sodium chloride can be separated from water by physical process of evaporation, right? However, sodium chloride is itself a pure substance and cannot be separated by physical processes into its chemical constituents. Similarly, sugar is a substance which contains only one kind of pure matter and its composition is same throughout. Soft drinks and the soil are not single pure substances. Whatever the source of a substance may be, it will always have the same characteristic property. So we can say that mixture can be separated by physical methods. Therefore, we can say that mixture contains more than one pure substances, and based on this there are different types of mixtures. So what we can say? We can say that mixture is a substance containing two or more pure substances mixed together. Mixture can be separated by physical methods. For example, can you tell? Soil, potassium permanganate, milk. Yes, so we can separate soil. It consists of sand, sleet, clay, moisture. So soil is a mixture of sand, sleet, clay, moisture, and we can separate them by physical methods, right? We can separate the egg yolk from its white. Okay, so these are some of the examples and the separation techniques of it that we'll learn in the next session. Okay, so mixture can be separated by the physical methods, and these methods we'll see in the next session. Now, what are the types of the mixtures? Depending on the nature of the components that forms a mixture, we can have different types of mixture. For example, sugar and water, salt and water, food color and water. So here you might have noticed that in the first case, sugar and water, you just mix them. After mixing or after stirring, you will observe after some time the complete salt and the sugar will get combined with the water. In this way, you will able to observe the uniform composition, right? Same for the salt and water, and same for the food color and the water. Everywhere you will observe the uniformity, uniform composition you will observe, right? This shows that a mixture which is formed is a homogeneous mixture. Okay, so mixture which has obtained has a uniform composition throughout. Such a mixture are called homogeneous mixtures or the solution. Here you will not be able to observe the sugar separately or the salt separately or the food color which is present separately in the water after stirring. They get completely dissolved in each other, and that mixture which is formed, it shows a complete uniformity, and hence such type of mixture which has obtained a uniform composition throughout, that is known as the homogeneous mixture. Now we cannot distinguish the uniformity of that mixture, right? Homogeneous mixture can have a variable composition. For example, food color and the water. Just take a 1 glass of a water and add 1 drop of food color and just stir it. Then take another glass, add 2 drops of water, stir it. Take third glass, now add 10 drops of water and just stir it. What you will observe? You will observe uniformity, you will observe the composition of that mixture which is uniform throughout. But if you will see the color of the mixture, then there is a change in the color. Why that change in the color is there, or we can say the intensity is changed? Because the solute which you are adding to the water, depending on that quantity, only that can vary. Okay. Now consider another example, talcum powder and the water. Just mix it and keep it for some time. After mixing it, you will observe the particles will get deposited at the bottom of the glass this time. So here the sample has physically distinct part. One is of the water and another is the powder. So here the mixture which you have obtained contains physically distinct parts and have non-uniform composition. Such mixtures are called as the heterogeneous mixtures. Okay. Other examples of mixtures of sodium chloride and iron fillings, salt and sulfur, oil and water. These are the examples of heterogeneous mixtures where you will observe the non-uniform composition with the distinct parts. Now let us see these solutions in detail. For that, consider the 4 groups in your class. Group 1 is provided with the samples of crystals of copper sulfate. Group B is provided with a sample of 1 spatula full of copper sulfate. Then group C, chalk powder or the wheat flour, and group D is provided with the milk or the ink. Now what you have to do is, each group should add the given sample in the water and stir it properly using the glass rod. And just observe, are these particles in the mixture are visible or not visible. So based on this, you will categorize this mixture into the 3 types, that is the solution, suspension and the colloidal solution. Group A and B both will got the solution. Group C will get the suspension and group D will get the colloidal solution. So what is the solution, suspension and colloidal solution? Let us see them in detail. So group 1, where a few crystals of copper sulfate, and group B, where 1 spatula of copper sulfate was given, that gets completely dissolved into the water. So a solution is a homogeneous mixture of two or more substances. In our day-to-day life also, we see many examples like the soda water, iodine in alcohol, salt and water, sugar with water, aerated drink, air. Yes, these all looks as a homogeneous mixtures of the solutes and solvents. So what are the solutes and solvents that you have already learned in the earlier chapter? So we see liquid solution, solid solution, and the gaseous solutions like the air. Liquid solution means, can anyone tell liquid solution? Lemon juice, it is a liquid solution. Solid solution is salt and water, sugar and water, and gaseous solution is the great example is the air, right? So everywhere a clear solution is formed. As well as if you will test them, they test same throughout that solution. For example, sugar and salt with water, just mix it, store it, squeeze some lemon in it, and just test it. The test will be same throughout. Okay, so it shows that particles will get distributed in the solution evenly. Let us see what are the properties of this solution. So we can say a solution is a homogeneous mixture as the particles get completely distributed and you cannot distinguish it. That forms a homogeneous mixture. That means the size of the particle is very small, and these water molecules, they give a space to these particles so that you cannot separate or you cannot distinguish these particles from the water particles. So the particles of solution are smaller than 1 nanometer in diameter, so they cannot be seen by naked eyes. Because of the very small size of the particles, they do not scatter a beam of light passing through the solution, so the path of light is not visible in a solution. The solute particle cannot be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration, as the size of the particles is very small. The solute particle do not settle down when left undisturbed. That is, a solution is a stable. So these are some of the properties of the solutions. Now, in the earlier activity, when you add a food color to the water, different amounts of food color you add to the water, depending on that the color of the water changes. So what is the composition of that solute in the solution, that we can calculate, and that is known as the concentration of a solution. For example, the amount of salt and sugar or the barium chloride that can be dissolved in water at a given temperature, both are same or not, that we can find out. At any particular temperature, a solution has dissolved as much solute as it is capable of dissolving, and that is said to be saturated solution. In other words, when no more solute can be dissolved in a solution at a given temperature, it is called as a saturated solution. And unsaturated solution मतलब क्या होता है कि you can dissolve the more solute in it, and saturated means you cannot further add the solute into the solvent. So depending on that, how much amount of solute is contained in that solvent, that you can find it out by using the formula. The concentration of a solution is the amount of the solute which is present in a given amount of solution. For example, I have taken a glass of water. In that I have added 2 spoons of salt. Then I want to find it out what is the mass percentage or what is the volume percentage of the solute which is added into that solution, so that I can find it out by using the formula. 3 formulas we can use it. In 3 different ways we can find out what is the proportion of the solute which is present in the solution. First is the mass by mass percentage of solution. Mass by mass means we are going to consider mass of solute as well as the mass of solution. So for that, mass by mass percentage of solution is equal to mass of solute into 100 divided by mass of solution. So you will get the amount of how much solute is added into the solution into 100, because you will get that into the percentage form. Then you can consider volume also, volume of the solution and mass of the solute. In that way also you can find it out. So mass by volume percentage of a solution. So mass of solute into 100 divided by volume of solution. Again you are going to get it in the form of percentage. And in the third way you can find it out volume by volume percentage of a solution. Means you are going to consider volume of a solute as well as volume of a solution. So you can find it out by using this formula. So understood, we can use 3 different methods to find out the concentration of a solution, that is the amount of solute which is present in a given solution. And that amount of solute, it may be in the form of mass or volume. Same, the solution, that may be in, you can consider in the form of mass and volume. Let us understand this with the help of example. See, a solution contains 40 gram of common salt in 320 gram of water. Calculate the concentration in terms of mass by mass percentage of solution. So our first step is, what is the solute and what is the solvent? First we need to identify them. So solute is salt. Its mass is 40 gram. Solvent is water and its mass is 320 gram. That we know. And what is asked? To find out the mass by mass percentage of a solution. So if we are adding 40 gram of salt to the 40 gram of water, that means the total mass of the solution will become 40 plus 320 gram. That means complete solution, the mass of that solution is 360 gram, which is a mixture of salt and water. Now we know the mass of solution, we know the mass of solute, we can find out the concentration in terms of mass by mass percentage of solution. So just write the formula. Mass percentage of solution is equal to mass of solute into 100 divided by mass of solution. Just putting the values, you will get the percentage of mass percentage of the solution, that is equal to 11.1%. Now here mass by mass percentage of the solution is asked. You can find it out by mass by volume percentage or volume by volume percentage if the quantities are given in that form. Okay, so this is how you can find out the concentration of a solution. Now, in the earlier activity where we have seen, we made a 4 groups, and to each group we have given different substances. So group C was provided with a chalk powder and a wheat flour, right? So after mixing it with the water, they got a non-homogeneous system, right? Because in this case, the solids are completely dispersed in the liquids. So, a suspension is a non-homogeneous system in which solids are dispersed in liquids as chalk powder in the water. So, what are the properties of suspension? Suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. Why heterogeneous mixture? Because these chalk powder or the wheat flour, they actually, these solids, they suspended actually throughout that solution. Then solute particles, they do not get completely dissolved. We can identify them but remain suspended throughout the bulk of that medium. Then particles of suspension are visible to the naked eyes, and when we'll pass a beam of light, then they can scatter the beam of light. Why they can scatter the beam of light? Because the particle size is much larger, and they can scatter the light. As well as if you will keep that medium for a certain time, then the solute particles, they settle down, and therefore we can say that suspension is unstable. They can be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration based on the density. The heavier particles will settle down, the lighter will not get settled down. Okay, so when the particles settle down, the suspension breaks and it does not scatter light anymore. Okay, so these are the properties of suspension. So understood, in suspension the particles of that solid remains dispersed throughout that medium. They cannot be dissolved into that medium. Then we can see them with the naked eyes. They do scatter the light because of the larger size of the particles, and they can be separated by using the process of filtration when they left undisturbed for some time. Then let's see what are the colloids. It is also known as the colloidal solution. So group D, which was provided with the milk and the ink, they got a solution, they got a mixture which is known as a colloid. So a colloid is a solution in which the substance remains dispersed and does not settle at the bottom. For example, milk or the ink. Why the particles that doesn't get settle? Because these are not actually very heavier. These are the lighter particles and the size is also small. So the particles of colloid are commonly distributed throughout the uniformly distributed throughout the solution. And though we cannot see them with the naked eyes, but yes, the mixture is a heterogeneous mixture, because later we'll see some processes, or in day-to-day life your mother also separates the cream from the milk. So there is a separation of some of the components of the milk, right? So we can say that milk is a heterogeneous mixture. A relatively smaller size of particles as compared to that of the suspension, and therefore the mixture, it appears to be homogeneous, but it is not actually homogeneous. We cannot see the particles with our naked eyes, but these particles can scatter the beam of light, and that scattering of beam of light is known as the Tyndall effect. The Name was given after the scientist who discovered this effect. Tyndall effect, it also can be observed when a fine beam of light enters a room through a small hole. This happens due to the scattering of light by the particles of dust and smoke in the air. Also, you can observe the Tyndall effect when a sunlight passes through the canopy of a dense forest. There also you can observe it. Then we cannot separate these constituents of the colloid. So as they do not settle down when left undistributed, and they cannot be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration, but we can use the process of centrifugation, which can separate the colloidal particles. So this process centrifugation we are going to learn further. The techniques which we are going to learn in that, this point will get covered. Then in short, the first figure, if you will see here, just I have given a comparison: true solution, colloidal solution, and the suspension. Just look at the size of the particles which are present as compared to these three. If you will see the solution, the particle size is so small, or the solute size is so small, hence they got completely mixed with each other. If you will see, the particle size is less than 10 to the power minus 7 centimeter, and hence they form a homogeneous mixture. If you will see a colloidal solution, and the particle size is lies between 10 to the power minus 7 to 10 to the power minus 5 centimeter. And if you will see the size of the suspension particles, then it is greater than 10 to the power minus 5 centimeter, and hence colloids and the suspensions, they are the heterogeneous solutions or the mixtures. As well as if you will pass the light through the solution, colloid and suspension, in the first case, solutions, they do not scatter the light because the particle size is very small, whereas colloid and suspension, they can scatter the light. So we can say they show the Tyndall effect, because they do the scattering of light because of the size of the particles is large as compared to that of the solution. So here is the difference between the three: solution, colloid, and the suspension. Particle size, as I have already said, solution, it is less than 1 nanometer, colloid 1 to 100 nanometer, and suspension more than 100 nanometer. Appearance, solution, it looks clear, colloid, it looks cloudy, and suspension, it also looks cloudy. Separation, solutions we cannot separate, then colloids does not separate, but we can separate the suspensions because they get settled down. Filtrability, passes through the filter paper, so we cannot filter them. Colloids, they also get passes through the filter paper because of the size of the particles, whereas suspension, particles do not pass through the filter paper. In this way we can separate it. Then effect of beam of light, light can pass through the solutions. Colloids, they show the scattering of light. Suspension, light cannot pass through. And examples of salt solution, mayonnaise, and the muddy water. So this is how you can compare this with each other. And the last is the physical and the chemical change. In our day-to-day life, we see many activities like breaking of pencil, ice gets converted into the water. So everywhere you observe the physical change. When the pencil gets break, its properties does not get changed. When the ice gets converted to the water, the properties that do not change, only the change in state is there. So a physical change is the change of matter that occur without changing the chemical composition of matter. Whereas we observe the rusting of iron, uh, formation of curd from a milk, where the chemical properties of the substance which is formed are completely different from the earlier one. So a chemical change is the change of chemical composition of matter. Then the physical changes, they are usually reversible. Water can again convert it to ice, whereas we cannot convert curd to milk. So chemical change is a irreversible. Then in the physical change, new products are not formed, right? Ice is made up of water only, and just ice melt and it forms water, so no any other new products are formed. Whereas in chemical changes, new products are formed which have completely different chemical properties. Then physical changes occurs when heating or cooling is done, and chemical changes always involve absorption or release of energy. Then the chemical changes have no effect on the chemical bonds of molecules of a substance, whereas in chemical changes, new substances are formed because of the breaking of the bonds, and they form the new bonds, so have a direct effect on the chemical bonds of molecule in a substance. So here we'll stop for the today's session. With that, stay safe, stay healthy, and continue learning. If you have any doubts related to this, you can just ask in the feedback column. Before that, go through the video once again and enjoy learning at home. We'll do a short revision of it in the next session also. Okay, so till that, continue learning and stay blessed. Thank you.